So next up, we've got a local historian. So this is going to be a bit of a Yorkshire accent fest because both of us do have very strong Yorkshire accents. Hopefully no translation will be needed. It's going to be a really interesting series, this. We're calling it Monarch of the Month. What we're going to do is go right back to 1066 when it kind of all started, really, with William the Conqueror. The first episode will be dedicated to William the Conqueror because that's where it all started. But then each episode after that will probably cover 2 to 4 monarchs in chronological order right up until the modern day monarchy. And the aim of it is to give everyone an understanding of where we come from, really, the history of England and Britain and some of the different things that have happened. Hopefully you find this as interesting as I do. So here we go.
Monarch of the Month!
Okay, so the first month we're going to be talking about William the Conqueror, where it all began. Take it away.
Right, well, I'll start off by telling you about William the Conqueror and how he became King of England. Right, before he was known as William the Conqueror, because he wasn't known as William the Conqueror for quite a long time. He was known as William the Bastard.
Okay.
Basically because he was illegitimate. His father, he was born in 1027. His father was Robert, Duke of Normandy, and his mother was the daughter of a lowly tanner.
So Normandy at that time was part of France, separate to France?
No, Normandy, the Normans, good question, because the Normans weren't French.
Okay.
The Normans were descendants of Vikings. 100 years before William, under the leadership of a man called Rollo, they went to Normandy, which wasn't called Normandy then. Normandy actually means land of the Norseman, or Northman. And the King of France gave the land to Rollo and his followers so that they would stop any further invasions of any Vikings. So they kept Normandy, provided they kept the rest of France safe. So they weren't French. Let's get this business of we were invaded by the French in 1066 away from us, because they weren't. They were actually Vikings, which in effect it's the same base of people that we all come from. Scandinavian, Germanic tribes, that's where the English, not necessarily the Scots or the Welsh or the Irish come from, but certainly the English all come from Germanic type Scandinavian tribes, right? So he was known as William the Bastard, right? And he was actually, because as I've just said, that they were all interlinked with, the certain tribes. At that particular time, England was Anglo-Saxon. Anglo, which came from the Engles originally. The Engles, Saxons and Jutes. It was the Venerable Bede that saw an Engle, and they were all blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and he said they looked like angels. So Engles became Angles, and so it were Anglo-Saxons. Saxony is to this present day in Germany. So the Anglo-Saxons, so they were all interlinked with one another. So the Anglo-Saxons were related to the Vikings, because Scandinavians. And in fact, William the Bastard, as we're going to call him until he eventually conquers England, was the second cousin of Edward the Confessor, who was on the throne of England. Right? Edward the Confessor promised William in later years the throne. Right? He promised him the throne. And Adol Godwinson, who was Adol II, who the man with the arrow in his eye, he was shipwrecked off the coast of Normandy, and he went to William's court as he was the Duke of Normandy, and Adol Godwinson actually took an oath of fealty towards him. So he had a fantastic claim for the throne of England when Edward the Confessor died. Of course, when Edward the Confessor did die, Adol Godwinson said, no, he can't become king, I'm king. And he was only, as far as Adol were concerned, all he was the brother-in-law of Edward the Confessor. No relation whatsoever, he was just the brother-in-law. So he got the Anglo-Saxon nobles on his side. and he had himself crowned at Westminster Abbey as King of England. In the meantime, William gives it, I'm not having any of this. So he got an army together and what have you. And as he was getting an army together, another cousin of Harold's, Harold Aldrada, who was a Viking, invaded the north of England. So Harold took his men up to the north of England, and there was a big battle at Stamford Bridge, where Harold defeated Harold Aldrada and his brother, because his brother Tostig also was on Harold Aldrada's side, offering, before the battle, he offered Tostig, he offered Tostig the Earl of Northumbria if he changed sides, and he offered Harold Aldrada 6 foot of English soil. So they were witty in them days. So anyway, he defeated the Vikings, which was the last Viking invasion of England. And then he got word that William had landed in Hastings. So he force-marched his men back down to Hastings, which he shouldn't have done, didn't rest them, didn't wait for reinforcements, and decided to go straight into battle. And actually the battle was at Battle. It wasn't at Hastings. They call it the Battle of Hastings, but it wasn't actually at Hastings. It was at a place called Battle, which still exists to this day. It's up the coast from Hastings.
So, where we're at right now is that Harold, who is the current King of England, has marched his men down to Hastings to fight William's army. That resulted in William winning that battle. Harold died supposedly from an arrow to the eye. That's what many historians believe. So, now that William's won the battle, let's find out what happens next.
But that didn't automatically make him the King of England. The Anglo-Saxon nobles wanted a young lad to be king. So what he did was, William, took his army and he desecrated all the shires around London and one thing and another. And this went on for years and years. And in fact, actually, when he came up north to do it against the Saxon rebels, it was known as the Harrowing of the North, and he virtually wiped all the people of the North out. But anyway, eventually, the nobles decided that he could be king, and on Christmas Day, 1066, he had himself crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. So that made 3 kings in 1066. There was Edward the Confessor, who died. Then there was Harold II. Most people think it was Harold I, but it was Harold II. And then William. So he became King of England.
Okay, so do you know how long he ruled for?
He ruled approximately 20 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, he was a very cruel man, which a lot of people in them days were, kings or nobles or whatever. He used to, but he was particularly cruel. He used to enjoy, instead of, if somebody, he were going to execute somebody, he would rather maim them or blind them than actually execute them, so that they would suffer for longer than just killing them, because killing them was just too good for them. So he was a really cruel man. He also commissioned the Domesday Book, and people go, oh yeah, what a good thing. To this day we know they're going, but it was done for taxation. He wanted to know what everybody had, so that he could tax everybody, because and certainly in them days it were mainly for war, because he had land in what is now modern day France, and of course he was fighting against the French and one thing or other. So they needed money.
They needed to fund those wars.
They needed to fund them. So all medieval kings were taxation for war. So he was married. His wife was called Matilda of Flanders. Matilda, as I say, was descended from Alfred the Great, which actually means, and I think this is a fascinating thing, it actually means that all our monarchs, including Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, God bless her, has Alfred the Great's blood in her. And it's things like this that I find absolutely fascinating. So, and that, again, it don't come down a direct line, like from father to son to father to son, but it's come down the female line. So, but it's still, just because it's come down the female line, it don't mean to say that it's any weaker.
No,
it's, do you know what I mean? It's still there. So when he died, he fell off his horse, which a lot of them did, probably drunk. I don't know whether they were or they weren't, but he ruptured his intestines.
Was that in England?
Yes.
Right.
He ruptured his intestines, and which aggravated the dysentery. He had dysentery, and it's amazing how many early kings of England died of dysentery. So if kings were dying of dysentery, God knows what the normal populace were like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he wasn't buried in England. He was buried in France. He was buried in Caen in France, and there's not a right lot more to be said about him. He built he built Windsor Castle. But when he built them, in all fairness, you look at Windsor Castle now and they go, and this was built by William the Conqueror. And it was, but it's not that particular building that was built by William the Conqueror, or he had commissioned built. It was a wooden structure. When he built the Tower of London, because the Tower of London is attributed to William the Conqueror, again, it was a wooden structure to start with. And it were later on that they became stone structures and became more permanent and what have you. Because the Normans were great for building great cathedrals, great fortresses. And he built a lot of castles, a lot of fortresses, basically to keep the peasants at bay. Because in them days, for all, the Anglo-Saxons never ever got a hold again on England. There were all sorts of other people that wanted a bit of England, you know what I mean? So they had to have great fortresses, and he did, that's what he did. So apart from that, and apart from Domesday Book, and apart from the fact that he was a very cruel and horrible man, and he started our dynasty off. I don't regard it as our dynasty. I regard it as our monarchy. He started it off. Whatever dynasty you want to call it, it all comes from William the Conqueror, because he's now called William the Conqueror, because he has conquered Britain. Sorry, I'll apologise. He hasn't conquered Britain. He's conquered England, because he only conquered England. He didn't conquer Wales, he didn't conquer Ireland, and he certainly didn't conquer Scotland. I don't think really, and we'll go into this in a later episode, nobody's really conquered the Scots. They have for maybe one or two battles, but they never won the war. The Scots became part of Britain by asking to be, not because they were conquered, not like Wales were conquered, not like Ireland were conquered, but because they asked to be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into some of that. That'll be a quite interesting story, I think. Yeah.
So you could go on forever and ever. Sometimes I think when you're talking about a king, if you confuse the matter with so many facts and figures, it becomes uninteresting. And what you've got to do is you've got to put the interesting facts in. Oh, I didn't know, blah blah blah. And then the little facts and figures can come in. I'm sure some of your listeners will write in and tell you, or phone in and tell you that, oh, I did so and so as well, and he did so and so, which I won't dispute. Do you know what I mean? But I'm telling you what I find interesting.
Find interesting about him.
I find interesting about him and what have you.
Yeah.
For all I think he was certainly a warrior. He was a bit of a not a nice man. Do you know what I mean? Which we can't say what I really think about him. Over what's coming over here.
Yeah. So he reigned for around 20 years.
He reigned as the King of England for about... The
King of England, okay.
I think 1087, I think, were when he died.
Okay.
And it was 1066, so... And actually, when you think about it, 1066, it was Christmas Day 1066, he became King of England. So really, it was 1067 when he became king, really, for want of a week. So if he died in 1087, it was 20 years.
It was 20 years. 20. So to give everyone a preview of what's coming up next month, who was the king or queen that followed William?
The next king after him was William II, William Rufus.
Which was his
second eldest son.
Right.
He barred his first son, who was Robert, after his dad. He barred his first son from becoming King of England. That fell out, his first son did try to invade England at later dates, but he never succeeded.
So there you go. You now know about William the Conqueror and the invasion in 1066. Hope you enjoyed that.